Welcome back, everybody, to That's DPI. I'm Zach, and that is Tyler over there. And we are back podcasting again. We were in Canada all weekend covering the Buffalo Bills Tampa Bay Buccaneers game. And we'll have all of that content for you shortly. I am just putting it all together. We got a lot of stuff to do. Just in case you're wondering, we have a stadium ranking video where we will be going over each criteria of Highmark Stadium and comparing it to other NFL stadiums that we have visited. And we will be doing a couple of short form contents of our experience at Highmark Stadium. So make sure you check those out. Should be out by the weekend. But back to our recap for this week, we have a ref call to get us started. Tyler, give us the scenario. I'll get the video pulled up.
So we have the Detroit Lions trying to crawl back against the Philadelphia Eagles. The Eagles are a first down away from going into victory formation. It's, I believe, third down here.
Right.
And a defensive pass interference is called against the Lions, giving Philadelphia that first down that they need to go to victory formation. If the Eagles don't get a first down here and they have to punt, it's still a long shot for the Lions, but it's not out of range. They would have about less than a minute and one timeout to go score a touchdown to tie the game. But a called defensive pass interference gives the Eagles a first down so they can go to victory formation.
Yeah, we'll go ahead and play that clip. Good setup here.
And again,
So
the
AJ
Eagles
Brown
are on offense. You see some hand fighting right off the bat. And then a defensive called pass interference.
Here's a wider angle of it before we start discussion. AJ
And then
Brown
it's on
running
that
an
far left
outbreaker.
side.
And as you can see, it was not thrown by that front judge. It was thrown by the back judge on this play. What do you see initially here on this rep by Rock Yassin of the Detroit Lions?
So you see lots of contact, and to me, I'm assuming that that's probably why they call defensive pass interference. Zach, you've got the pool report, but I'm seeing lots of hand fighting on both sides. I don't see enough to quantify defensive pass interference. To me, this is two athletes doing some equal hand fighting, and then a ball that's not thrown near. I don't see the Lions defender preventing AJ Brown from being able to make a play at the ball.
Gotcha. And
To
so
me, this is clean.
I agree. In fact, I think it's egregious. And I'm not just saying that because I tend to pull for the Lions. I think this is one of the worst missed calls of the season. Not missed calls, one of the worst blown calls of the season. And I want to give full context to what the referees are seeing here. And then I want to break it down what our eyes actually see. So in the pool report, which is released after the game, reporters can ask the referees, specifically the head referee, what they think or about specific plays that were officiated in the game. And this pool report, first question was about that game-ending PI call because there wasn't very many penalties in this game outside of it. This was the first call on a defensive back all night. There was no illegal contact, no defensive holding, no pass interference. This is the one that they drew the line at. And the official, here's the quote, the official observed the receiver's arm getting grabbed and restricting him from going up to make the catch. So the ball was in the air, there was a grab of the arm, restricted him, and he called defensive pass interference. Here's the freeze frame of A.J. Brown going up for the catch.
Now, I do want to go back a little bit.
So we'll rewind.
Does he pull the arm? That's what we're looking for.
So here we see A.J. Brown fully extend, get separation from Rock Yassin. There's kind of a swipe at the arm, but I don't think that you can quantify this as a grab. I think the arm just kind of makes contact. He never actually locks it. He just kind of swipes. So I don't even see a grab of the arm here, truly. He's fighting off the stiff arm that A.J. Brown is giving. He's literally pushing it off. Does not grab, kind of swipes. I don't see a grab at all. I don't see it at all. Do you?
It's not. No, do I see a grab? No, I don't. I think I see where the ref's mind is, because you do see, if you back it up a little bit, you do see Yasin's arm extend while AJ Brown's arm is down. Right there. I see what the ref is seeing,
Wow.
but it's wrong.
It is
That's what
blatantly
he's seeing,
wrong.
but it's wrong. It's not a pass interference.
Grabbing
So
an opponent's arm.
I disagree with you when you said it's one of the worst calls, or one of the worst blown calls this year. I don't think it's that egregious, but it is wrong. It is an incorrect call, in my opinion.
I think it's one of the worst blown calls of the season, because there is almost no argument to support the ref. There's actually more of an argument to support offensive pass interference than there is defensive pass interference on this play. That's what I think makes it so egregious. I don't think the Lions were going to crawl back into this one, but for the game to end like this on a national stage, once again, the NFL has a massive issue with games ending with controversial penalties on the national stage. And this is no different. Nobody wanted the game to end this way. I've seen even Eagles fans, who are the most hard-headed, braggadocious fans and will say anything when their team wins. Even Eagles fans said, yeah, that was pretty egregious. Didn't want the game to end that way. Because when you're on the winning team, when on the winning side of a call like this, you certainly know, Tyler, it doesn't feel good. You get ridiculed by fans. Everyone thinks the game is rigged for your team, and it doesn't feel like you earned it. And if you're on the losing side of it, you feel like you got robbed. So nobody wins when the refs decide football games. And this one, late in the game, would have had a chance at a real good finish to what was a crappy game beforehand. It was really low scoring, lots of defensive mistakes. So the NFL, once again, robbing us of a potentially good finish. And I do want to give context to what you're saying. The grabbing of the opponent's arm in such a manner that restricts his opportunity to catch a pass. A.J. Brown is fully able to jump in the air, leaps, and the ball does not touch him. He's fully extended. Would you agree?
No, I agree. I do agree.
He's not able to make the catch. So Article C doesn't even apply here, because it doesn't restrict his ability to make the catch, because he's fully able to jump and leap and extend into the air.
And I agree. I do not believe that this should have been defensive pass interference.
Okay.
I wouldn't go so far to say it should be offensive pass interference, but it should not be. It certainly should not be defensive pass interference. And I want to comment on one other thing you said too, is that not a single defensive penalty had been called all night. Now, one could argue that that's all right. It's been a clean game up until then, quote unquote. But I also want to tell the audience something you said before the game. Before the game, you saw a statistic that this crew calls the most defensive pass interferences called than any other crew in the league. And yet tonight they were letting them play up until that moment.
Yeah, I feel like that's another issue. I think it's a lesser issue than the game-defining calls at the end of primetime games. But if inconsistency is huge, no other sport has a more inconsistently officiated product than the NFL. You could get games like the Chiefs-Broncos game, in which the Broncos were flagged 15 times for 147 yards. And you could get games like this, where this is the only defensive penalty on a defensive back the entire game. It's different week to week depending on the crew, and the NFL doesn't seem to care. But I'm going to step back on your assertion that you don't think this is offensive pass interference. We both agree that it's not defensive pass interference, but I'm going to argue that it actually is offensive pass interference, and I'm going to use the rule book to do so. So Article 2, which is prohibited acts by both teams while the ball is in the air. We've referenced this over past episodes many times, but we have not yet mentioned Article G. Article G says initiating contact with an opponent by shoving or pushing off, thus creating separation. That's the article, and that is completely prohibited by either side. Now, I want you to guys watch this back. Shove, separation, that is textbook offensive pass interference. It's more offensive pass interference than it is defensive pass interference. So if you're going to call anything, you should call it based on Article 2, Section G. So that, to me, is another reason why it's so egregious. because it's so not defensive pass interference, it gets into offensive pass interference territory. It's just brutal.
I see where you're going. I do see a shove. And if something had to be called, yeah, I'd go offensive pass interference. But ultimately, I don't think it's either. There's too much hand fighting between both of them that I don't think either should be called.
Sure, and
Neither
I agree. I
restricted.
think a no call is the right call. However, if you're
Okay.
gonna throw a flag, there's more evidence for OPI than there is DPI. There's genuinely nothing there, honestly, for DPI. There's not a grab here. There's a swipe. Yasin disengages immediately. It's kind of like if you ever get a hold of the jersey and they disengage immediately. Typically, they won't call holding, but
Hmm.
it's just I have never truly seen such a nothing burger defensive pass interference before.
Yeah, it's certainly something that I agree with you that the officials need to get a lot more consistency, and honestly, they need to just admit when they're wrong sometimes.
Agreed. Yeah, because
Because
when
you
we
can
look,
if you come out and say, "Yeah, the ref kind of saw this, but like he made a mistake." I think NFL fans would really respect that, but if you're just like, "Nope, he grabbed him." And then you look at the replay and you go, "He did not grab him at all." Even though I see what the ref is seeing and it's not a great look, but you can admit you're wrong. NFL refs never admit that they're wrong.
I mean, it's really the NFL as a whole, but we do talk about the refs a lot, and I think that's a great point, Tyler. The pool report is the most useless thing in the entire NFL because you're never going to get accountability, even when they are dead wrong. I hearken back to the Dallas game in 2023. We always harken back to this, but that pool report defended the ref's decision, and it straight up lied. It said both players approached the ref, and he was confused, or he didn't say he was confused, and he said Taylor Decker did not report as eligible, and Dan Skipper did. The video evidence shows that it didn't, and the pool report once again is saying things that our eyes can see aren't true. And so I don't even know why the
Mhm.
NFL bothers to put them out if they're just going to lie and never take accountability. I've never seen a ref take accountability for a missed call ever, or the
Mhm.
NFL take accountability for a missed call ever. And it's to the point where it's ridiculous.
I agree. And really, I feel like both of us have kind of made our cases,
Yeah.
and we agree it's not defensive pass interference. I also think that before we move on to our next episode, or excuse me, before we move on to our next segment, one idea that I want to pop in your head, we need because we always go back to that Decker reported or not reported in Dallas of 2023. We need to do a special episode sometime breaking down that clip because you and I always disagree on that clip.
Yeah, I think that should be first on our offseason docket because whenever I talk about pool reports or ref accountability, that is always fresh in my mind. And we actually do disagree, but I can't. I have trouble seeing your side of it sometimes. So I think it's good
It, it
to get our both of our thoughts out on the internet so that when I reference this, we have something to point to and be like, go watch this video if you're confused on what
Go
I'm
watch the
talking
clip.
about.
Yeah, we definitely need to do that sometime. But we've got four major storylines this week. Zach, what's going on out of Cincinnati?
Oh gosh, I feel like we talk about Cincinnati every week because they always give us something to talk about. It's not our fault. So in the game last week, Cincinnati was defeated handily by the Pittsburgh Steelers, and frustrations boiled over for Jamar Chase, who spit directly in the face of Jalen Ramsey, a notable trash talker, too. I'm not defending Jalen Ramsey. There was some shoving and notably some trash talk, but there is precedent for that spitting gets you suspended. And so, after the game, as a result of the video evidence clearly showing Jamar Chase spitting in Jalen Ramsey's face, he was suspended 1 game. And he denied it actually on Twitter as well, right,
That's
Tyler?
my favorite part is that they asked both the players. Jalen Ramsey goes, he spit on me, and once you spit on me, I don't care about football anymore, which is such a truthful answer. Like Jalen Ramsey did not say, should have kept my emotions checked. He goes, no, you spit on me. I don't care about the game anymore. Uh, and in true Jamar Chase fashion, Jamar Chase said, quote, I didn't spit on nobody. Which
Yeah,
technically, if you think about it, is a truthful line because he said he didn't spit on nobody. The double negative shows that he did spit on somebody, and he did in fact spit on Jalen Ramsey.
this is true, and that's why I kind of paused. I wanted to let you say your favorite part, that Jamar Chase lied directly to our faces about it, and then was immediately hit with the
I didn't spit
suspension.
on nobody.
Yeah, I think that
I
it's
saw so many funny memes about that too. Like lying when you have so many cameras on you at all times is diabolical. That was my
yeah.
favorite tweet.
I mean, it's honestly absurd, and it makes it even worse that the NFL gets away with lying every week when they avoid accountability for their terrible calls.
Hmm.
Um, but how will this affect the Cincinnati Bengals going forward? Because I know they're still trying to fight to get Joe Burrow back this season. That division is far from out of reach. Although if they are going to make the playoffs, I feel like they have to win the division since the AFC is so competitive. But does this really affect them in their next matchup against New England, or were they just going to lose anyway?
They were gonna lose anyway, and they were gonna lose the division anyway, and this suspension makes the Bengals lose by 28 instead of 21.
Yeah,
The
I think the
Bengals season's
Patriots.
hopeless, and I'm here for it.
Yeah, it's going to give some interesting decisions for the Bengals front office. I mean, and they don't do well with interesting decisions, so we'll have to check back in on them.
I do think Zach Taylor gets fired, though. I mean, and this
Really,
certainly isn't going to help him. I do think Zach Taylor is going to get fired at the end of the season.
I think that's probably a good move for Cincinnati. Zach Taylor, aside from his fluky run, has not done well in calling plays that protect Joe Burrow. I mean, a lot of that's on the front office for not drafting O linemen at all. And this is something we
Zach
kind of
Taylor
talked
as
about,
well for
right?
because
But
if the coach wants an offensive lineman, they're going to draft an offensive lineman.
sure. But this is something that we kind of talked about this weekend, right? After this happened, I think that the Penei Sewell versus Jamar Chase debate has officially been settled, right? It was always Penei Sewell over Jamar Chase.
Yeah, and I don't fault the Bengals for drafting Jamar Chase, but their real flaw was never going to get a guy like Penei Sewell. Joe Burrow was Jamar Chase's teammate 2 seasons prior at the time of the draft, 1 season prior at the time of the draft. I get it. And if I was the Bengals, I would have drafted Jamar Chase over Penei Sewell also. If I was the Bengals, only the Bengals there. But you still gotta go get your linemen. And it never happened.
Right. And it's unfortunate that Joe Burrow's health is now threatened for the rest of his career because he does not have an offensive line. He's suffered so many injuries that, it becomes a risk of re-aggravation
Mm-hmm.
of so many of these terrible, terrible injuries that he suffered due to lack of protection. But speaking of
Mm-hmm.
lack of protection, Shadur Sanders is going to start behind that Cleveland Browns offensive line for the first time this season. He got play time in the game last week versus the Ravens, in which they almost pulled out and won. However, a fake tush push direct QB sneak rollout with Mark Andrews allowed the Ravens to pull off an unlikely win against maybe a likely win. It's the Browns. But Shadur Sanders totaled 47 yards and an interception with a QB rating of 2.4 in that game. He went 4 of 16 with a completion percentage of 25%. So, based on those statistics against the Ravens defense, what do you think Shadur Sanders' stats will be in his first career start?
So for additional context to the audience, this week the Browns are going to play at Oakland. Well, at Las Vegas, but I don't ever call it Vegas. So they're playing at the Raiders, which is a notably much worse team. This is a team that has already given up on the season. They've already given up on each other. Everyone except for maybe Max Crosby has already given up. So I do expect Sanders' stats to be much better. They're not going to be Hall of Fame stats, but I expect them to be better. My prediction is a 60% completion rating for 125 yards.
Hmm.
Maybe a touchdown, maybe an interception.
Gotcha.
So 125 yards, 60%, one touchdown, one interception.
Gotcha. So
That's my prediction.
you expect them to go kind of run heavy against this Raiders football team, not air it out a ton with Sanders.
No, I think it would be a mistake to air it out. So I think it would be a mistake to air it out a lot with Sanders making his first career start against a team that does have a good pass rush, specifically Max Crosby. You've got to run the ball. You've got to run the ball against Max Crosby, but you do need to pass a little bit.
Got it. So
And it's got to be quick passes too. You can't do a 5-step drop.
I'm thinking his yardage is a little higher in a full game. I'm thinking 180 yards, 2 touchdowns, 2 picks, and we'll go 55% completion. I think he throws a lot, but I'm thrown off by his 25% completion when he came. Like, I don't know, what do you even do with that? I think he improves by 30% and gets to 55. Throws for 180, and then 2 of each, touchdowns and interceptions. I think he's going to get more work. And why not, right?
I think it all comes.
Oh, go ahead.
It all comes down to the attempts because, I mean, you and I are agreeing 55 to 60% completion. So those yardage really just comes down to those attempts, obviously. I just don't think they're going to be able to pass all that often. I wish I knew. Actually, let me look at one thing right off the bat. I want to see what Mahomes did against Denver, just to provide a little bit of context, because that was another offense that struggled horrendously. And I think this is a very similar offense. So the box score of Mahomes versus Denver was 276 yards. Mahomes went 29 for 45, 276 yards. So, okay, I am more inclined to think that Sanders can go above 150. I don't think he's getting anywhere near 200, though. So I think his max is 175.
Okay, got it. I just think
Just because the Browns have a horrible offensive line, and if you try and do a 5-step drop and put more yards in the air, Max Crosby's going to get him.
Yeah, and here's my logic behind giving him a little more yards. I think that I understand that they're starting him because Dylan Gabriel's in concussion protocol, but at this point, they're evaluating their quarterback room. Their season is lost. They're just trying to figure out what they have in him. So I feel like they're going to air it out a little bit more. Give him a shot to show what he's got. I mean, it doesn't matter if you win or lose this game. It's all about player evaluation at this point in the season for Cleveland. So why not give Shedeur a chance to take a couple deep shots, maybe look at some intermediate passes, see what he does under pressure. You got to figure out what you have now, because next year is going to be an interesting battle with Cleveland. Do you draft someone high, or do you like Shedeur and Gabriel to stick with them? I think they should draft someone high, but you don't draft these two guys for no reason. I mean, they clearly saw something in them. So I think they let him air it out a little bit, but he doesn't perform all that amazingly.
The reason I don't think they're going to pass as much is because I don't think they're in player evaluation mode. I think player evaluation mode was done in the preseason as to which of these two young guys is going to get it. Gabriel got it. Sure, now it's Sanders' spot, but they now have two young guys. So next preseason, all right, it's going to be a battle between these two. This is when we're going to evaluate. This is Sanders' job until Gabriel comes back, is how I see it. I don't think they need to evaluate Sanders. I think they need to see how he manages the game. And part of managing the game is going to be establishing that run while not giving up the pass. So the way to do that is short passes, establish the run. Short passes, establish the run. That's how you manage the game, especially against this Raiders defense. That's not very good against a quarterback that's not very good.
Gotcha. I think that we'll check back on these and see who gets closer. Maybe they'll get bragging rights. They'll get the last argument in our discussion about the 2023 Dallas Detroit game. That's the stakes right
There
now.
we go. There we go.
So
Who
big
gets the
stakes.
affirmative?
That's important. You guys don't understand how important that is, but you will.
This
And we have
this
one final.
ref this ref debate is honestly 50% of this podcast origins.
Yeah, no
Is that
kidding. I mean,
crucial call in Dallas?
Genuinely, this podcast wouldn't exist if it weren't for that play and that debate. So it's a high time that we cover it at some point. But final storyline: do the Vikings have a JJ McCarthy problem? And I can go first on this one, unless you want to. Maybe I can just kind of open the debate with some statements.
It's your division. Have at it. I've got my answer, but it's your division. You can start it off.
Gotcha. So JJ McCarthy to this point has thrown 6 touchdowns and 8 interceptions with a 6 yards per attempt for 842 yards and a 52% completion percentage. He has never received a Pro Football Focus grade of above a 65 in either offensive or passing, and he has currently a 6.1% turnover worthy play rate. So that's kind of his statistics. And that doesn't, obviously, statistics and Pro Football Focus don't tell you the whole story, because he could be, throwing accurately and on time, and his receivers could be dropping it, or there could be schematic issues, or the run game couldn't be working. But none of that's true. Aaron Jones has been healthy in these last couple of games. He is one of the best supporting casts in football, with Jordan Addison healthy, Justin Jefferson healthy, his offensive line getting healthy, and he's got a great coach that has turned around the career of Sam Darnold and made Kirk Cousins look elite for a couple of years. So there's no excuses for failure. And JJ McCarthy's mechanics and his accuracy have been the major problems. It's really his throwing platform. He tends to overstride and sail passes way over the head of receivers. And when he doesn't overstride, he doesn't have the arm strength to get it there, and he underthrows receivers for interceptions. So it's either overstride and miss on these missiles, or understride and just throw picks or throwing completions. He's been horrible. And anyone who's watched the games know that the statistics could be a whole lot worse based on how bad he's been. So I'm curious what you have to say. Do the Vikings have a JJ McCarthy problem?
My short answer is no, or at least not yet. Due to JJ McCarthy's injury last year, the Vikings are operating as if they have a rookie quarterback. 6 touchdowns and 8 interceptions is not good. Do not get me wrong. That is not good. He wouldn't, if he was considered a rookie, he's not winning Rookie of the Year by a long shot. He's not at all. But some other statistics that put into play as well. He is averaging 52 completion percentage, which I think does tell a good story. His highest is 66, his lowest is 47 2 weeks ago versus the Ravens. But his yardage also, his lowest is 143 yards against you guys in Detroit. But his highest is 248, which is weirdly enough his lowest completion versus the Ravens. So he's currently inconsistent, because he's got sometimes where he's throwing 2 touchdowns. There's sometimes where he's throwing no touchdowns with 2 interceptions. He's inconsistent, but he's got glimpses of being good. So what I want to see if I'm a Vikings fan is I want to see him settle in. I want to take those glimpses of greatness, or goodness at least, and make that more consistent. And if I'm seeing glimpses of being really good as essentially a rookie, I'm okay with that for now. It's not panic time on JJ McCarthy yet. One of the worst seasons a rookie quarterback has ever had was Peyton Manning in his season. He still holds the record for most interceptions thrown by a rookie, and it will stand forever. But it is not panic time on JJ McCarthy. I don't think he's going to be Hall of Famer, but it's not panic time yet. I would not say that they have a JJ McCarthy problem yet.
So here's my counter argument to that. Peyton Manning's problem was never his mechanics, or he was always mechanically sound. That's the reason why he was such a high pick. It was largely his supporting cast and his decision making early on in his career. He got a lot better at that, and the mechanics stayed the same, and Peyton Manning settled in and did great. When it's a more fundamental issue like JJ McCarthy has currently, where he doesn't have a strong arm, and to compensate for it, he has bad mechanics, and he continues to miss throws badly. It's not like he's making bad decisions. He's missing throws and throwing interceptions. He has not yet played in an NFL game without throwing an interception. He has an interception in every start he's had. And it's not, and I haven't seen improvement once. His yardage totals have remained relatively consistent, right around 150 yards outside of that Baltimore game. He's thrown an interception in every game, and his completion percentage has never gone above 65, and that was in his first game. It's only gone down from there. I want to see a little bit of improvement, in whether it's settling in or whether mechanically he starts working on his overstriding. I don't think it's a small adjustment problem or it's rookie rust coming off of him. I think it's a serious fundamental issue. And you mentioned something interesting. The Vikings are treating him like a rookie, but he's now in his second year. So at this point, the Vikings have one less year on a cheap rookie contract than a team like the Commanders would with Daniels. So they're already at a disadvantage and are at risk of squandering that cheap rookie contract if he doesn't get any better. And I think that that's a serious worry for Minnesota. I mean, he's had all offseason programming to improve, and he still looks like this. I think it's a serious problem at this point.
I feel like last offseason, it was still getting healthy again. Last offseason wasn't let's fix your mechanics. It was let's get you healthy so you can play. Mechanics is something that gets fixed in the offseason, not week to week, because a week practice is not how do you throw better. It's let's game plan for this defense and let's connect with your receivers a little bit. So if the decision making is not the issue, I actually feel better because decision making is a football IQ thing. And if your football IQ is bad, you're screwed. So if he's got good decision making, you work on the mechanics this offseason. That's why it's called training camp. Is our this is where we're working on the fundamentals in June, July, and August. That way, the whole off season is game planning, or excuse me, the whole regular season is game planning. Fundamental mechanic stuff doesn't get fixed during the regular season. That is an off-season issue. If we're having these issues next season, then they have a serious JJ McCarthy problem.
Okay, here's my counter to that. He's been through 2 full training camps as a Viking. He got hurt in the preseason. So he'd gone through his second training camp prior to this season. So you'd think that they'd have an opportunity to iron out some of these mechanical issues, and they haven't. And next year is his third year. He's already 1 year left on his rookie deal, and they have to decide whether they're going to pick up what will be a very expensive 5th-year option on a quarterback that may only have 1 good year in the books, and that's if he improves. If he doesn't improve, then they have to start thinking about addressing the problem as early as next draft, not this coming draft, but the draft after. And for a team that wants to compete for a title now with their aging core, they may not be able to afford waiting 2 years to get the quarterback that's right because JJ McCarthy's taking so long to develop. I think that the Vikings are in serious danger of having to rebuild because their core will be too old to compete for a title. They're already last in the division, largely because of McCarthy's play and injury history. He got hurt again this year. He got hurt in his first year. He got hurt again. So at this point, it's getting dire. It's getting now or never, and he's not improving. So I would need to see significant improvement from week 11 to week 18 for me to be confident going into next year.
The last thing I'll say is one correction. They've got 2 seasons before they have to decide if they want to pick up his option, and by then you will decide if that's going to be the case or not. So this is his second year. He'll have year 3 and then year 4, and then after that is when they decide if they want to pick up his
No,
fifth
you
year
decide in
option.
year 4 whether to pick up the 5th-year option.
You decide in year 4.
Yes. I believe it's because I believe it's the year prior to the 5th-year option being eligible, you decide. It's something weird, but the 5th-year option has to be decided pretty early, like a full
Okay,
offseason
maybe that's
before it
something.
kicks in.
Maybe
Like I
that's
think
something
it's
to
the
look
beginning of
into.
year 4 when you decide to pick it up.
Okay, so then if that's the case, something that we can look into and then continue that debate, maybe as we see JJ McCarthy progress or not progress later this year. But I just think it's too early to say there's a problem yet.
Okay, we will
And
check
that's the
back at
basis
the
of
end of
my
the
argument.
season on this debate as well, because I am curious to see if he improves, and if he does, we probably have to start talking Minnesota Vikings rebuild territory. But that is our final storyline of the day. We are moving on to recaps. I will let Tyler start. He hasn't done a recap in a couple of weeks because the Chiefs were on bye. So go ahead, take it away.
Oh man, I don't even know where to fully begin. Um, the streak is dead. The the Kansas City Chiefs now have a 7% chance to win the division, and it's just not going to happen. The streak is dead. The streak that's been going on since my junior year of high school in 2016 is now dead. Of course, the streak being winning the AFC West.
Yes, I remember that. I just entered preschool.
The Chiefs, the Chiefs' offense is struggling. Matt Nagy needs to be fired. And the Chiefs are now kind of 50-50 on even making the playoffs. A lot of that is their offense. Denver's got a great defense, don't get me wrong. But the Chiefs' offense is bad. Not struggling, not as dominant, bad. They cannot stop committing penalties, specifically Jawan Taylor. They cannot stop punting the ball. And Andy Reid is once again overthinking stuff. He's putting Rashee Rice at running back while putting Kareem Hunt at a wide receiver, while putting Noah Gray and Travis Kelce and Robert Tunyon on the exact same play. That was the formation that they came out with this week. Just run the ball. Stay fundamental because that's what they're good at. Stop being too creative when your offense is struggling. The defense, credit to the defense. The defense, I think, did fine. I think they're doing all right. But man, their offense is bad. And it's finally time that it's catching up to them. Mahomes has always been able to bail out this team. And I'm not turning my back on the Chiefs. I'm not saying that the season's over, but the division streak is over.
Yeah,
5-5 compared to 8-2. The division streak is over, and it's solely because of the offensive struggles, specifically with their penalties.
yeah, it was a rough watch. I mean, the Broncos did a lot to help the Chiefs win. Those 15 penalties, it's rare that you see a team pull out a win with that penalty total. And Mahomes threw a bad interception, got bailed out by what was essentially a soft penalty, then turns around, same drive, throws another bad interception, just never saw the defender. So even the bailouts aren't working anymore from, kind of the aggressive jump ball play style of the Chiefs on third down, because that's essentially their strategy on third and long is allow Mahomes to fit it into a tight window and try for a penalty, because the Chiefs don't have players to win those contested catches, but they have a quarterback that gives them a chance to get interfered with, essentially. So, and even that wasn't working. And when that's not working, man, this offense is really tough to watch. And they've got to make some serious adjustments if they want to win a playoff game, because I believe the AFC Championship streak can still continue even without the division title. It would be more difficult than it has been in years past, but I still think the Chiefs are capable of doing that if they can fix a couple of issues, if they can get back to running the ball, if they can show that they're a threat running the ball and not just abandon it immediately and have Mahomes throw bad deep passes to either defenders or to nobody, because it's been happening too often.
My biggest concern is that this was coming off a bye. Andy Reid is historically wonderful coming off a bye, and they looked bad. I know we had some injuries at running back. Kareem's not the 2017 Kareem Hunt that he used to be. Pacheco's out. Clyde is Clyde. But they looked bad. I know Denver's defense is good, but Andy Reid did not come in with a good offensive plan. I'm still standing behind Andy Reid, but it does show where the Chiefs are.
I agree.
And this is not the team that we're used to seeing in the last 5, 6, 7 years.
It's not the team that we're used to seeing in the second half of the season. We've seen some rough first half of the seasons in the Mahomes era. Do
Mhm.
not get me wrong. But this team usually has it cleaned up by now. And it's fairly concerning that it's still stupid penalties, dumb play calls, bad execution. It's
Dropped
week 11,
balls too.
Chiefs. Do they realize
Dropped
that?
passes.
Yeah. Do they realize that the playoffs are still not a guarantee anymore? It feels like the team is coasting.
Mm-hmm.
But
They're
I
two
agree with
games out of
everything
first.
you just said.
They're 2 spots out of first. Even if the NFL extended it to 8 playoff teams, the Chiefs still aren't in. They're number 9 right now.
Yeah.
And they've got a gauntlet coming up. They've got the Colts coming up this Sunday. They've still got San Diego and Denver again a second time each. They've got a tough schedule still.
Yeah, I agree. I it's going to be tough to turn it around. I do believe that the Chiefs can do it. There's a lot of problems that they need to fix first. If I'm going to be confident at all in them making and succeeding in the playoffs.
I agree. Outside of the game, losing penalty, Zach, you want to go and recap Detroit?
Sure. Yeah. Also, some of similar concerning problems. Jared Goff had the worst completion percentage of his career. It was in the 30s. So Jared Goff, and I don't think it was entirely his fault. I do think that he crumbled under pressure and looked off in some throws, specifically accuracy. There was a couple to Jameson Williams and Amon-Ra St. Brown that were just in front or just behind. But it's largely due to the offensive line. The offensive line was breaking down, losing one-on-one matchups, giving pressure up instantly from both the interiors and the edge. I don't think you can expect any quarterback to succeed under that kind of pressure, especially not Jared Goff, someone who thrives on good protection and good protection alone, pretty much, although it is fairly concerning that he was inaccurate. Amon-Ra St. Brown had some drops. The Lions were 0 for 5 on fourth down. They were one away from breaking the record that they set in 2022 of being 0 for 6 on fourth down. I don't hate the play calls. A lot of people on Twitter are going, why not just kick it? Why not kick it? Well, the winds were swirling. They showed pregame that the kicks were just missing wide right and left. So I don't disagree with any of the fourth downs. None of them were very long. They were all manageable. And I think aside from one of them, the fake punt, all of them had a path to conversion and were just executed poorly by the players. That's not on coaching. If you call the right play, you make the decision to go for it, and your players screw it up, I think that that's not on coaching, and they ultimately made the right choice. Lions just looked off in every facet. But I don't think it's indicative of the season. I don't think it's any time to panic. I still think this is a top 10 offensive line. I think the Eagles had a really good plan, and I haven't even talked about the defense yet, who, despite all of this horribleness that I just talked about on the offense, they kept it to a one-score game, and if not for an egregious penalty, would have had a chance to go down and tie it because of how good the defense played. They stopped the tush push on third and fourth down. They had Devontae Smith in hell. The Eagles could barely complete passes, and I really liked what I saw from Kelvin Shepard's defense. So there's a lot to be encouraged about if they can clean up the offensive line play, and I believe that Dan Campbell and Hank Fraley can. But I'm curious to your thoughts.
My thoughts were, the defense, who's severely banged up, played phenomenal. They played really good. I don't think the Eagles' offense is wonderful, but the Lions' defense played great. And their offense, they were playing good offense, and I even told you mid-game, they're playing well, but they're stalling. They're not finishing drives. When they get down to that edge of field goal range where a normal team a normal team would kick it, they were, due to Dan Campbell and the wins, unable to kick it. And I think you answered my question, but I do have to ask it. Dan Campbell is play caller. The Lions are great at revenge games, which is partially why they kicked the crap out of Washington last week, or as a revenge game, but not a revenge game. What's your thoughts on Dan Campbell's play calling?
Yeah, I think that I largely stand by what I said earlier. I think the play calls were largely good. There were a couple situations in which I disagreed. Specifically, the fake punt. The starting defense was still out there for the Eagles. I think that we should have checked out of that. I also think that there was a punt late in the game with 5 minutes to go that I felt was pretty surrendery. But it ended up working. They ended up getting. I mean, they should have had the ball to end the game, so it ended up being a good decision. I think that largely the play calling was fine. It was the execution, the offensive line that sold the game. There were some really creative calls that were open on those fourth downs that Jared Goff just never had time to hit. Is the play calling perfect? No. I think that Dan Campbell definitely could have called a better game. But do I think it's a problem by any means? And I think I'm worried about the rest of the year? Absolutely not.
And I actually do agree with you, but I just had to ask the question because the Lions have lost 2 of the last 3. And I've seen a lot of things on Twitter about Dan Campbell's play caller. So I did have to ask the question.
Same here.
And you guys who do you have this week?
We have the Giants at home wearing the black alternate uniforms.
Ooh, that's going to be a good game.
Yes.
Giants at home in all black in Detroit. That's a dub for you guys. And the Lions haven't lost. Get concerning is if you guys don't win this one. I think.
Lions haven't lost back-to-back games since 22. It's the longest active streak in football. Not saying that we should overlook our opponents. The Giants are certainly scary, whether it's Dart or Winston back there. They've played their opponents close, but typically teams with close to double-digit wins find ways to lose games in the end, and that's what the Giants have done this year. And so I want the Lions to kind of use this as a get-right game, especially with the Rams and Packers coming up. I feel like if this team is going to be competitive, you have to wallop the Giants and win one of those two, whether it's Green Bay or the Rams. Obviously, Green Bay being more important. It's at home on Thanksgiving, huge divisional implications, but you've got to prove that you can beat a contender. They've lost to Kansas City, and they lost to Green Bay early in the season, and they lost to Philly. I think the Vikings. I think the Ravens game was impressive at the time with Lamar healthy, but outside of that, they have not had a super impressive win against a good team. They need to prove they can do that before I anoint them as going to the Super Bowl this year. I'm not confident that that can happen unless they clean it up and show they can win big games.
Mm-hmm. You guys got the Giants, we've got the Colts, and I believe that takes us to my top 3 games of the week, which one of them is a game that we've already mentioned. One of my top 3 is at noon, and it's Colts at Chiefs. It maybe isn't a playoff indicator because the Chiefs are not guaranteed that yet, but it could. It is very likely for the Chiefs to be a wild card against the Indianapolis Colts. Colts and Chiefs, noon game. Top AFC versus dynasty that's struggling right now, but it's at Arrowhead Stadium. It does give the Chiefs a better advantage. This is going to be a big test to see how the Chiefs can really bounce back, and I think this game is really going to determine if the Chiefs are a playoff team or not. So definitely something to watch. I've also have been very open that I am hesitant of putting the Colts as an elite team this year. So this will be a good test for both teams. The Chiefs have a good defense. Colts have a good offense right now. It's going to be a good test. Spags versus a good Daniel Jones this year. That's going to be at noon. Tune in for that. My next game of the week is at 3 o'clock, and it is Cowboys and Eagles. It is Eagles at the Cowboys. This is going to be a preview for Thanksgiving, I think, because I do think the Chiefs and the Eagles are in a very similar spot for just their abilities. Um, Cowboys are going to be at home after having really at a very emotional and powerful win this last week. Can the Cowboys continue on this path? Can the Eagles continue on their momentum path after beating a good Detroit team? And battle of the NFC East, always a good thing. Division rivals, especially with two historic franchises. Tune into that game at 3, Eagles at Cowboys. And then my final game of the week is Sunday night, Buccaneers at Rams. I can see this being a playoff matchup. I love potential playoff matchups. It is always worth tuning into. Um, if the Seahawks end up winning the division and the Bucks end up winning the division, then this very easily could be a 5-4 wild card matchup in mid-January. So Rams and Buccaneers, playmaker Baker getting 2 straight game of the weeks from my list.
Yeah, those are great picks. Chiefs going up against your favorite NFL head coach, Shane Steichen. Gonna be a thing of beauty. Yeah, I would mini debate here because we have some time. Is this a must-win game for Kansas City? Do you think they're going to come out with everything they've got?
The answer to your first question is yes. Is this a must-win game? Absolutely. You cannot go 5-6.
Right.
You really, you're having to start to crawl back by the skin of your teeth. If you're 5-6, this is absolutely a must-win. Will they come out with everything they have? Maybe. The Colts are notoriously stupidly good against the Kansas City Chiefs. The Indianapolis Colts are the only team that Patrick Mahomes has not beaten in the regular season. So maybe they will, maybe they won't. But it is a must win. And if the Chiefs do not win this game, honestly, even if it's close, if the Chiefs don't win this game, I don't know if they're getting in this year. We may have a Chiefs-less playoff for the first time since 2014 if they don't win this game.
Wow. Over a decade. I have a feeling it's going to be very similar to Chiefs Lions, where the Chiefs were on the ropes. Nothing is scarier than the Chiefs on the ropes. It's coming from a fan who had to watch Chiefs on the ropes give everything they had against my team. So I also
this is the playoff game for Kansas City.
Absolutely. I think every game going forward is, and their effort last week shows that they weren't treating every game like a playoff game to this point in the season. So they better Mahomes better do something to fire him up. Get them in that mindset that, hey guys, regular season matters too. We're not automatic anymore. So
weirdly enough, the last thing I have to say about the Chiefs this week, I don't think Mahomes is the issue because we've had his Mahomes MVP debates on this podcast.
Sure.
It comes down to dropped passes, penalties, and play calling. I think Mahomes has been great, but those other 3 factors are wildly inconsistent.
Yeah, and I tend to agree. Mahomes he's been much, much better than any other quarterback put in the situation with all the injuries early on and the weird midseason departure of his left tackle and everything like that this team was dealing with. He weathered the storm well, but you're right. Those 3 factors, penalties especially, man, cannot have drive killers like Jawan Taylor seems to commit once per half like they do. Can't have it against the Colts. They will punish you with Jonathan Taylor. But with that, I think that's all we have for you this episode. Make sure to tune in this weekend for some extra Buffalo Bills content. We're excited to bring that to you. But take care.
Appreciate you guys.